Their solution, starting with the premise of climate change, is we need to ban air conditioning.
It's expected that 4 billion people will buy their first air conditioner by 2050.
Great.
But air conditioning itself is a major contributor to global warming.
What percentage of Americans do you think have air conditioning versus Europe? Okay, now, comment below. That's pivotal. Ice agent, the sunglasses make it hard for you to... You're not as quick to the draw.
Yes, sorry.
It really doesn't make sense to wear sunglasses inside if you're an agent.
Yeah. Unless you've lived a good life, bro.
The reason this matters is because based on the premise of climate change, right, the reason for these heat waves, a false claim, you have the left advocating reducing or outright getting rid of air conditioning, right, because of CO2 emissions.
Makes sense.
And when you understand that that kills people to the tune of thousands, many, many, many thousands in the first world, and then you understand how many people die in the third world that we aren't necessarily even able to quantify because those records are not kept. They're not tip top.
Right.
They're not airtight with their records in the world that is third. Yeah. But right now, Texas is in the middle of this massive heat wave. It seems here to stay. In case you don't know, here's a clip.
But the severe storms doing little to bring down the extremely high temperatures across the state.
It's not what they're designed to do, you moron.
The heat wave still weeks away.
100 or 105, yeah, but it's hot. Yeah, I have to work. Doesn't matter.
San Angelo and Del Rio, Texas, both yesterday breaking their all-time highest temperature records.
It's one of Dante's
the soaring
rings.
temperatures combined with high humidity, creating a dangerous combination.
And just to be clear, there have been 13 deaths attributed to the heat wave, so I understand that. We're all sympathetic, empathetic, and we would all like to reduce deaths due to extreme temperatures.
Of course.
Correct?
Right.
Yes.
Okay. Do not let the left have a corner on empathy. Now, there is a matter of policy that needs to be discussed, which leads to thousands of deaths and one does not. That being said, I was raised in Quebec where it was different when you had a heat wave. I miss the good old days when it was really just something to celebrate.
Heat wave! This is my island in the sun.
Always a good way to fit it in. Smash the Rumble button if you're watching on Rumble. If you're watching on YouTube, everything you can do there with those algorithms is helpful. Then head on over to Rumble. So here we are. The claim, and I'm sure you've seen this, Brian, is this is naturally all the cause of global warming. Right?
That makes sense.
Climate change.
Yes.
Wait, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
I forgot which one they went with.
Remember that movie when Adam McKay created that movie Vice, and he tried to make it seem like climate change was invented by right-wing extremists? Yeah, Frank Luntz and his toupee and sneakers.
Are you serious?
Yeah, it clearly came from the left when they had extreme cold temperatures.
Oh, now I have to watch it and be angry.
So they have a solution. You don't set an appointment to get angry.
Well, what if I want to be angry?
Yeah.
Well, if I do, I just set an appointment with you so you can tell me your personal stories.
And never tell you how
He watches it just to get some motivation to work out.
Yeah, exactly.
Could have gone to Oxford as well. It's really strange.
Oh, God. Is that true?
Yeah, that's another thing with Gerald. He went into the gym for the first time in 10 years, and he put 225 on the bench. His leg was off the ground. It was cockeyed and cattywampus. He's like, I don't know, is 8 reps with 225 for never touching a barbell in 10 years good? Everyone's like, we hate you.
Next you'll tell me he's 6'4".
Yeah, I know. That's what he says, but he's actually 6'5".
My wife
that's
says all
really
that early.
annoying.
It's just, he's so humble and nice, and I just want to punch him.
And he can run you down.
I know. So the
don't
solution,
you dare run me down.
The solution from the left here is, hey, global warming, right? So if that's your premise, again, think about it. We've talked about Gun Week. If you start off just a little bit off center, well, if you're shooting at 5 yards, it doesn't really matter. 10, 20, 100 yards, you're going to miss. So if you're starting off with, all right, this is climate change, so we're aiming to solve that issue. That clearly is what has led to the 13 deaths in Texas. As soon as you go down that trail, whether you were correct or not, well, not whether, you're wrong, okay? So now you can't correct it, and you're way off, and you're going to miss a few years down the line. So their solution, starting with the premise of climate change, is we need to ban air conditioning.
It's expected that 4 billion people will buy their first air conditioner by 2050.
Great.
But air conditioning itself is a major contributor to global warming. It uses a massive amount of electricity and can leak potent greenhouse gases into the atmosphere.
You actually will get into this pretty strong feedback effect where, it's hotter, people want more air conditioning, and it just gets, worse and worse.
We're saying the same thing.
Yes.
You get into this, except for the lies that it's this massive energy. That's not true. I'll give you all these facts because, it gets hotter and people want air conditioning, and they put in sad music, like the theme from Schindler's List. Like, yeah, it gets hotter and more people want air conditioning. Wouldn't it be great?
It's kind of doomsday music, though.
Yeah,
it is.
This
air conditioner. I
air conditioning.
Yeah, and that guy looks like he's well-conditioned, air-conditioned.
Oh, that guy doesn't do well in the sun.
No.
He's sitting in an air-conditioned space right now, decrying air conditioning.
Oh, he couldn't be whiter.
His skin sees a UV ray. It's 30 days of night.
Yeah. He smolders. Vampire.
Yeah. And nothing about John Kerry's private jets.
No, exactly. So
Bezos' super yacht.
Here's how Vox puts it. God. And by the way, just to be clear, NBC Universal, the parent company of Vox, they're all carbon neutral. These giant.
Oh, they are.
Yeah, they don't use energy, and I'm sure their offices are not air conditioned.
That's crap.
So this is what they write: What if the most American symbol of unsustainable consumption isn't the automobile, but the air conditioner?
Oh, Lord.
In cool indoor spaces, it's easy to forget that billions of people around the world don't have cooling. No, we didn't forget it. You do. And that air conditioning is worsening the warming that it's supposed to protect us from. By the way, shouldn't end it with from, but here's
Crazy
the
math.
truth, okay? People without air conditioning die, just to be clear.
Yep. Much higher rates.
And by the way, you know what makes it less likely for people to have air conditioning? Skyrocketing energy costs.
Yeah.
Which, of course, we have experienced, and if the left had their way unfettered, the entire world would experience. Imagine if Justin Trudeau was actually consequential. Do you have any idea how much your gas would cost, how much your electric bill would be?
Yeah. Put him in charge of a major U.S. state.
So,
see what happens.
This stat
Windmills
is shocking, okay? And this is from the CDC, the WHO. These are the average yearly heat stats, okay? The United States, it's 702. That's 0.21 people per 100,000. In Europe, people who die. CDC and WHO, just to be clear, bastions of right-wing extremism. Remember? You believe science is a thing. Well, great. Here you go. Don't let the science hit you in the teeth. 702 in the U.S. to Europe, 15,000.
Wow.
That's 2.01 per 100,000. And by the way, the temperatures, when you're looking at the extreme, for example, you want to compare apples to apples, Texas, Spain, you look at they're very close. They have extreme heat, just to be clear, before you try and say that. Yeah.
Italy.
Now, here's something. So you go, okay, so 10 times the amount. All right. What's the big differentiating factor? And the reason we say the United States to Europe as opposed to one European country, right? Think we have Florida, we have Texas, and we have New York State, right? You have Washington. We have all of the climate, so it's a more accurate comparison, as well as population. The households with air conditioning in the United States, 90%. The households with air conditioning in Europe, 10%. Are we sure about that, Gerald?
Sure about that.
So crazy. They rely on fans.
According to MIT, Stephen.
According to MIT. According to MIT. Okay.
Reputable university.
Yeah, okay. I just want to make sure that we are correct.
Making sure, yeah.
Do we have anyone else who corroborates that?
Actually, we have a few. The Washington Post will also corroborate that. CNBC.
Well, they said it was 5% in 2019 as far as Europe.
Doubled.
Okay.
And so, yeah.
And we're making all of this available. The United States, 90% of households have air conditioning, and Europe is 10%. So MIT, Washington. I just want to make sure.
Post, CNBC. I have others. Statista, if you want to go down the list a little bit.
All right.
And then finally, one of my favorite sites, Mother Jones.
Mother Jones confirmed this.
Wow. Mother Jones confirmed.
She's a bitch.
Yep.
I don't like her at all.
So, hold on. 90 versus 10. That must mean that. Are we sure? We're sure, Gerald, about that
100% sure about that number.
90 versus 10.
90 versus 10. And by the way, sometimes it's government interference. Spain wouldn't allow their residents to set their thermostats below 80 degrees.
Oh, my God.
That's like having a former military dad.
It is. And by the way, only 5% of homes in England have air conditioning.
Really?
Keep
only
them toasty.
5%.
Keep them toasty. They'll be
idiots.
sluggish, and we can control them.
That's right.
Hand out popsicles once a year.
So you have 10 times the death rate.
That's incredible.
Okay, in Europe. And you have,
it's more than
close
that.
to about
700 to 15,000.
Yeah, 700 to 15,000. I'm rounding.
That's like 1,000,000%.
But the solution is to get rid of air conditioning, right, according to the left, because of the massive amount of greenhouse gases. Okay, so again, let's assume that, let's say 50%, right? You might think that if you're saying it's worse than vehicles. Let's assume that 50% of the Earth's CO2 came from air conditioning.
Okay.
Okay. We're at the point where we have heat. So let me ask you this. getting rid of all air conditioning to reduce carbon emissions by 50%, or people having air conditioning, where do you think more people are going to die? That's assuming that the number would be astronomical, but here's the actual data as it relates to the emissions. Air conditioning is at most, responsible for 3.9% of man-made global greenhouse gas emissions. Total, right? 3.9% of all of our emissions. And according to MIT, man-made CO2 only accounts for 9% of all of that in the atmosphere. So that means we have 10 times the death rate in Europe, where people less than 10% of the population have air conditioning. So we know that lack of access to centralized air conditioning, to modern cooling methods, leads to deaths on a massive scale. But we still want to enact policy that will lead to more deaths to the tune of hundreds of billions of dollars, probably trillions, probably zillions if you adjust for the current state of inflation. That's what it would cost to eliminate CO2 from AC, and that would reduce the total CO2 in the Earth's atmosphere by 0.35%. Is that worth trillions of dollars and tens of thousands of deaths? 0.35%? Hey, we can't do these numbers because no one has a consistent source. If you were to shut off all air conditioning tomorrow to reduce total CO2 emissions by 0.35%, all right, how many lives do you think that would save? What would that do as far as a quantifiable effect, a measurable effect on the global temperature? Would it lower the global temperature and eliminate heat waves enough that people without the air conditioning, because you took it away, could survive? Hey, let's say it takes it down from a record high of 118 to 114, which no one is even claiming. Are those people better off?
17.8.
Yeah.
That's really what it might do at the very.
Well, I mean, at least you could do hot yoga.
That's
anybody?
fair.
They're already doing that.
You would only have the choice to do hot yoga.
Save money on saunas? I don't know.
It's called India. All yoga in India is hot yoga.
Oh, well, yeah, but yoga in India and in Hindu means stretch.
Stop moving your legs, Brian.
What?
They don't work.
I don't know. I felt
Governor.
immaculate.
They don't work.
Healing.
If a tree falls in
If you want to be Daniel Day-Lewis, you have to earn it.
No,
it's true.
I'm a bad method.
You know what they're not? You know what they're not taking into account in this is refrigeration. So a big part of air conditioning and refrigeration, very similar processes. Refrigeration typically is much more intense. Refrigeration is quite possibly the single greatest invention in history for man.
Says you.
No, I'm just saying in general. It might, seriously, if you look into what it allows you to do with medicine and food and everything else.
You can preserve food.
Yes. I like to preserve all of my meats by drying them and placing them in salt.
Such a man.
Exactly.
You're such a man.
So they're saying we should probably get rid of that too, because that really is kind of a subcategory of air conditioning. Refrigeration fits neatly in that.
Says the guy who
just
doesn't
roll
live on
back
jerky.
every invention that we've ever made.
So you live in a world where you don't have air conditioning. Let's say you wouldn't have refrigeration. Okay. And they want to get rid of gas stoves and wood oven and coal stoves in New York. So you have meat that has gone rancid with no ability to cook it.
Yep. You got to salt it and dry it. Live on jerky.
You have feces like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is what we have to. So you can comment below. Does that make all of those numbers? 90% of the United States to 10% of Europe, 700-something deaths in the United States due to heat, over 15,000 in Europe. And if we eliminated all air conditioning, as advocated by Vox, as advocated by all these leftist outlets, all the references available at loudwithcrowder.com, we would reduce CO2 in the world for a totally air-conditionless society by 0.35%. No one here is anti-world, anti-planet. We're pro-human.
Watch Louder with Crowder live, Monday through Thursday, 10 a.m. Eastern.